I'm Anna Wilde, the birth whisperer and creator of the Loving Heart Gentle Birth e-course, your guide to a better next birth. It is my deepest wish that you recover your birth in confidence and that you can birth again feeling safe, supported and happy. So always remember, I am totally happy to share the knowledge that has helped me and countless other women to have good births. However, I don't have the right answers for every person, so please intuitively use what's helpful for you. Don't just believe me, test things out, be open and explore what makes a better birth for you. Follow your own guidance and above all, no matter what happens, be kind to yourself. So today I want to share a little bit about how to prepare for an easier second stage. And by second stage, I mean the pushing part. So it's often true that the second stage is the easier part, but sometimes for some women, the pushing part is harder than the cervix opening up part, and it can feel more intense and can seem to go on and on and on for way too long. So this video is mainly for women who are giving birth again and who are worried about the pushing part because that was the hardest part last time. But if you're a woman who is still to give birth and you want to make the pushing part a little bit easier, then you'll find some really good ideas in here too. So the pushing part was really easy for me, but I've worked with so many women who found that phase of labour really, really tough. And the women who have had a really tough time with the pushing have a huge amount of fear, and they say things like, I'm really so scared of the pushing, having to be there. One woman said, on the floor grunting for 2 hours. Pushing was definitely the hardest part, and it just went on and on. It was so hard. So if you're pregnant or hope to be, and if you're anxious when you think about the pushing part, here are a few things that you can do so that you can feel calmer about it, which is an important first step, that you can be better prepared and that you will likely have a more positive experience next time. So the first tip that I want to give is that you dispel the stories, fears and negative beliefs that you may have about your pelvis and what your body is capable of. These may be stories or opinions that you might have been told about yourself by birth professionals, especially last time you gave birth, or maybe these are ideas you've started telling yourself and believing might be true, or they might be stories about the pushing part of birth that other people have told you, stories about themselves or about other people. So let's start with the first part of that, which is opinions that you may have been given or told about yourself or your body or your baby by medical professionals, like say your doctor or midwife. For example, when your birth involved some sort of intervention like forceps or suction or surgery to help baby out, it is really surprisingly common for a woman to be told by a care provider, oh, your baby was just too big, or your pelvis was too small or too narrow, or your baby just couldn't get past this certain point or this bone. I've been at a birth and have heard an obstetrician say directly to a woman during the birth, oh, there just isn't enough space in there. And many women have told me the reasons that they have been given about how their body or their baby weren't quite the right size or shape. And so that's why it went the way it went. It happens. But I think that these types of explanations, these single explanations, are given too often. And I'm not saying that birth doesn't progress as hoped for really good reasons. But what bothers me is that often the main reason given relates to the size of the baby or the size of a woman's body and what her body is capable of or not capable of. And the issue is that these types of statements are like an instant download of doubt, like self-doubt, especially because as a woman giving birth or having just given birth, you're usually lying down, you're in a slightly more vulnerable and less powerful position when you're hearing these words from a slightly more powerful and authoritative figure who means well and may not know that the impact of their words are going to be ultimately negative. Because this type of language, like your body was too small, your pelvis was too small, the baby was too big, is really undermining and disempowering and can really impact how you feel about your body, whether you can trust your body to grow a baby that's the right size for you, which, let's face it, women have been growing babies the right size for their body for millennia, and that your body is really perfectly formed for giving birth to this baby that has been made by you. So without realizing it, we as women hearing these words may take on a care provider's opinion as fact, when most likely there were countless other factors that all contributed to things not progressing easily or normally. And I think ultimately it's really limiting to allow one opinion, one idea to define what your body can do under other circumstances, with another baby, with other preparation, and with a totally different mindset. The medical condition of having a baby that's too big for your pelvis is very, very rare. And in most cases, normal pregnancies for healthy women, the baby will be the right size for your body. And yet, you hear these words so often, oh yeah, the baby was too big, or I was too small, or my pelvis was just not the right shape. So I really encourage you that if anyone has ever told you something like this, or you started really taking on those words as fact, or like your tailbone was too long, or your pubic bone got in the way, just consciously stop and take a moment, take some time to give back, to let go, to release any of those unhelpful words or ideas that you may have been given, because they simply won't support you in your next birth as you move on towards birthing again. And you don't need those ideas. However things unfold at the next birth, having those limiting ideas in your consciousness and your mind, they won't support you in your aspiration for a better birth next time. And it's really possible that if you have heard some of those ideas and words, you might have started telling yourself unsupportive ideas and entertaining thoughts that really are about doubting your capacity to birth. And if that's the case, and these thoughts just keep popping up like, oh, what if I really am too small down there, or maybe I just make babies that are too big for my body, if those thoughts come up, just very gently say, no, I'm not going to entertain that thought. Just let it go. Likewise, if you were once told by your mother that women always have trouble in your family, or the babies are always too big, or whatever, or a friend told you that the pushing part was so terrible for her, or you heard another story about that phase of labour, or even jokes about babies being like pushing a baby up being like pushing an orange through your nostril. Like, you don't need that stuff. And remember, your cervix and your vagina are made to open up, like not like a nostril. So any of those stories, any of those ideas, do whatever it takes to just say no more. You don't need those. And the next stage, the second idea or tip that I want to share with you is that you start opening up to other possibilities, that another experience is possible for you. Just because you've had one or two negative pushing or birthing experiences, that doesn't have to define all of your future birthing experiences, and that you can start imagining a different type of birth for yourself. Start imagining something different. I've got two really great stories, women that I've worked with that I know who made that transition and started opening up to the possibility of a really positive birth and taking action in that direction. The first one, a woman called Ali, she came to one of my hypnobirthing classes, and she was pregnant for the third time. She had had really challenging instrumental births for both of her babies, her first two babies, and they were 7-pound babies. And she was a little bit doubtful, like, could she have a different experience? Like, she'd already had 2 experiences that had started proving to her that birth was hard and that she would need instrumental help. So she was doubtful, but part of her must have been hopeful, because she came along to the hypnobirthing classes and started preparing her body and opening her mind to another possibility for her next birth. And she went on to have an amazing, beautiful, natural birth for a 9-pound baby. So she'd had 2 difficult births with 7-pound babies, and then she had a really amazing, much easier birth with her 9-pound baby. Both her and her husband were just totally blown away, like could hardly believe it, but so joyful. And after a couple of hours at the hospital, headed home to meet the rest of the kids after school. So it is possible to have like a bigger baby and an easier birth. So there was another friend, Talia, and she'd had a really, really rough time with her first baby, and yeah, had a lot of stories about would she be able to open up. Her baby's head had been, she'd been told, and she had the idea her baby's head was really big, and maybe that was the case, but she had a lot of ideas of like, I don't know if it's actually possible for me to have a normal birth, to have a bit easier birth. And so she really had to work through the physical and the emotional scars and open up to a new possibility. She did some great work to move past the trauma and to be reasonably optimistic. She went on to have a much better birth experience. I don't think she would say that the pushing phase is like easy for her in any way, but she was really happy with her second birth. It was significantly better. And so I invite you to just use whatever resources, skills, tools, ideas that you can gather to start affirming and imagining an easier birth. You might use visualization or hypnosis or affirmation or art. And let's face it, most of us have some limiting ideas or fears to acknowledge around birth. Like for me, I wasn't really scared about the pushing part, because that part happens pretty easily, like my babies just pop out literally. But I did have a lot of fears about sleep deprivation and of feeling depressed after I had a hard time after my first baby, and so I had to clear a lot of those fears and start opening up to the idea that I could be happy and relaxed and tired and feel really at peace with that, to think that I could respond to my next experience in a totally different way, which I did. I really love the quote by Napoleon Hill, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve." So start feeding your mind some really new pictures about how your birth could go next time. I'm going to be making a really great PDF sheet of affirmations that I might include in this post as well that you could use. The third point that I'd really encourage you to explore is to get to know your birthing body a little bit more. So what does this mean? This means start to learn about your pelvis, about the birthing muscles and the soft tissues of the pelvis, and start to discover some simple techniques to help your body and your pelvis be more open, to help baby to move into a positive position, a helpful position for birth, an optimal position for birth, and to allow the whole pelvic area to be just that little bit more open and flexible, because those bones the connections between them are looser than they will ever be in your life because of the hormones, and there are ways that you can help the muscles be more relaxed so that everything, just the whole setup is more conducive to an easier opening, pushing, birthing phase. So I really love this metaphor, and if you like, for how much space baby needs to come down. If you hold your thumb and forefinger in front of you like this and push hard so there's a bit of tension, then you'll notice when you try and rub your thumb and forefinger together, it's pretty hard to move if there's tension, if there's pressure there. Whereas if you just relax that whole finger and thumb, then you can slide them against each other really easily. And I like to see this as the difference of what baby needs, the difference in space that baby needs to move down and out. Is sometimes just that little bit difference in tension can make a big impact in terms of the space baby needs. I first learnt that that metaphor from a great kit called the Pink Kit. So I highly recommend that you do some exploration into the pelvis and the pelvic muscles and start using some simple exercises to balance those up and to create more space at this awesome website called spinningbabies.com. There's a really simple course for parents, mums and dads, to learn about helping the tissues of the pelvis to be more balanced. And I think that's about $40 American. Totally worth it. So really encourage you to get that information there. There's a lot of printed information about daily exercises that can help with fetal positioning and relaxing the muscles there. So, and you can also do this little course if you'd like. So yes, that leads into the fourth point, which is during the birth itself, it can be incredibly helpful to be in positions in which the pelvis is able to move more easily and to be that little bit more flexible. So if you imagine, if you're on your back, lying flat on your back, as you see in most Hollywood movies, and it's like the image we have had conditioned into our mind, implanted in our mind, because we've seen it so many times on TV and in the movies, of a woman on her back. If you think of the base of her back, that's that bony triangular part called the sacrum at the base of her spine, it's really like solid against the bed, and that affects the whole mobility of the pelvis and how the baby is able to move down through the pelvis. So what you want, instead of being in that reasonably immobile position, inflexible position, is to be in upright, forward and over position. So it's easy to remember. You say it's like UFO, upright, forward and over positions. I also learnt this great what's it called, an acronym, from the Pink Kit years ago, and really grateful for that. Upright, forward and over. So some of the positions that are more helpful than lying on your back, which help your body be more open and use gravity as well for baby to come down and out, is to be like on all fours, on your hands and knees, or leaning forward in a standing, kneeling or sitting position. You can also move into slightly squatting positions, so like bringing one leg up onto the foot, knee up, and then bringing it back down, and then bringing the other leg up. And in those positions of forward leaning and being up and over and squatting and lunging, you can also do hip circles. So moving your pelvis around so the tailbone is like drawing a circle on the floor. If you imagined it had a long pencil attached to it, you could do really great circular movements with your pelvis, and that's creating a lot of opening between all the bones. A really easy way to achieve this is by sitting on an exercise ball or a birth ball, and then you can make that circular motion, that swaying motion, really, really easily. So do take a birth ball if you're going to the hospital, or check that they've got plenty there so you can use one and lean on the bed or lean against your partner. Do practice these positions. Give your body a memory of these positions so that once you're giving birth, that you can naturally move into different upright, forward and over positions, because you'll intuitively already have a sense of how to be in them from your earlier practice. And the fifth point that I want to share with you is that you do some internal perineal massage. And I know when I first heard about this, and many people hear about perineal massage, it's like, oh, you want me to massage where? Like down there? And I'm pregnant and there's this big bump in the way, and how do I actually do it? And it can feel very weird when you first hear the idea of doing internal perineal massage. Now the thing is, the research shows that perineal massage reduces the chance of having an episiotomy. That's really the only solid research about it. But in my experience of doing it for myself and talking with many, many mothers who've done perineal massage, the internal perineal massage has multiple benefits. First of all, I think it's important because it brings you into direct contact with that really important birthing sexual part of ourselves that otherwise really, only gets contact in sex. Otherwise, we don't give it some, loving, touching attention. And especially if you experienced some trauma in your last birth, whether that be emotional or physical trauma, or if you've had other trauma to do with your sexual organs, your sexual experience, all of those birthing parts of your body, then just by bringing physical contact into that area together with a really gentle, loving intention can be incredibly healing. And let's face it, when you're going to give birth, you want to have a good relationship with that part of your body. You want to feel good about it. And so perineal massage is a brilliant way of doing that. Secondly, when you massage the inside of the perineum, that lower part of the vagina, you really get a sense like there's enough space down there. Like when I was doing it for myself, it made me feel bigger. Like, oh yeah, like it just felt like there was more room there when I'd actually touched that area more. And thirdly, if there are little spots of tension, and because it's like muscles there will be little places where there's more tightness, more tension, where it's a little bit sore, just like, a sore place in your shoulder. And so if you massage that lower perineal, the base of the vagina there, you can massage those little spots, and over time, like days or weeks, those tension areas will reduce or even disappear just by spending a little bit of time there every day. So I really recommend that whether you do it by yourself or you enlist your spouse or partner to help you, that you spend 2 to 5 minutes for the last sort of 6 weeks or so before birth doing a little bit of perineal massage. Oh, I didn't actually say, some people really say that they feel like doing the perineal massage and just a little bit of stretching and that it created more flexibility in that area, that they felt like that by massaging that area that it could open up a lot more easily. So another good reason. Use lubricant. You might do it on the bed with your leg up, or in the shower with your leg up on something. I had some yeast infection in one of my pregnancies, and then it was really like, no, I didn't want to do it. So listen to yourself, and if there's a reason why it's not a good idea for you, then go with that. While you're doing it, play some nice music. You might use some visualization about that whole birthing area opening up beautifully during the birth. Some people imagine an opening flower. You might imagine baby just coming down and out really easily. But whatever you do, just send lots of loving thoughts and feelings to this amazing part of your birthing body and start feeling good about it, excited about it. And so point number six is that during the birth, instead of going with this idea that it is absolutely essential to push really hard again, like in the movies, like, it's like, there's so much grunting and pushing and everyone's standing around going, push, push, and there's like a cheerleading team around the bed. Start opening to the idea that it's not always necessary to push really hard for a baby to be born. For many women, it's possible to just breathe down with the baby moving down and support the natural expulsive movements of the birth path, because your body is doing it naturally too without your overbearing pushing on top of it, that you can breathe your baby down. And in hypnobirthing they talk about J breathing. It's a little bit like using your body with the breathing like an accordion and just supporting the baby down and out like coming down a water slide. There's some great videos on YouTube about how to do the J breathing, so you could look into that. And there is just a gentler way of breathing down with that birthing process. So I really had the idea before my first baby was born that I was supposed to push. And so I pushed really hard. And like, this was my first baby, and the pushing part was only 10 minutes long, which is pretty short. There were only about 4 surges or contractions in that time. And I didn't know it at the time, but I really didn't have to push. My body would have just pushed baby out on its own without me pushing at all. I could have just breathed and watched the whole process. But because I thought I have to push, I pushed really hard and baby came out really fast, and I tore a little bit. It wasn't like bad, but it was, unpleasant that happened, and I took a few days to heal. So for my second baby, I was like, wow, I really know now that I just don't need to push. And so I asked my support people to just remind me, all you have to do is soften, relax my mouth, my jaw, my shoulders, and just breathe, and my baby will just come out. And that's what happened the second time. It probably took 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes instead of 10, but my baby just slid right out into the water pool and really just popped out. So I'd always had lots of dreams about my babies just popping out, and actually that is what they do. So, and my mum always said to us when I was young, oh, the women in our family, they have pelvises like buckets and babies just fall out. And that's not very romantic, or that visualization might not work for everyone, but it certainly gave me the idea that babies can just come out. So while that happened for me, it's not always the case for everyone that babies just slip on out, as I'm sure you might know. So if you give it a go of just breathing gently down, like trying the J breathing and breathing your baby down and not pushing and bearing down so hard, and then you get a feeling like, gosh, no, I want to give this some more energy. It feels like I really want to push. Then from that intuitive place, from that place of inner listening to what your body and your baby want to do, feel free to push more, like to bear down harder if that's what feels right for your body, rather than someone else outside of you telling you how to do it. So there are a couple of friends I know who came to hypnobirthing classes, they learnt the J breathing, they tried that peaceful, calm breathing your baby down stuff, and it just wasn't working. It felt like nothing was happening, and they wanted to really push. And so they did. At some point it was like, no, actually, I want to push. And they did, and that was awesome. So just listen to your body. But don't feel like pushing is absolutely essential for every woman to have a gentle, pushing phase. So finally, number 7 is that you might want to consider having a water birth if that's an option around you and for your situation and for your pregnancy. It is a wonderful way to go through that birthing, pushing phase of the birth. Just the pain relief, the capacity to move into different positions, that you're really buoyant and the pelvis can open more easily. There's nothing solid against your pelvis, and you can go forwards and backwards and just move into different positions so easily. I love it. It's not perfect for everyone. It doesn't always work. Just because, like, I've been at a birth where a woman got in and she was like, no, it's too hot, I don't like it, or for whatever reason. It doesn't always work, but if you think it'll be cool, then look into that. So that's it. I hope you have found my 7 points for easier pushing helpful in some ways, and I really wish you an easier, more positive birthing phase for your next baby's birth. And if there's any insights that you'd like to share, then please post in the comments, share with your friends on Facebook, and if you've benefited at all, then spread this far and wide, because I really am just here to make things a little bit easier, a little bit better for as many birthing women as possible everywhere. If you feel like you've got some residue fear or trauma or anxiety that you want to work through one-on-one, I am always here for Skype sessions wherever you are in the world. They're awesome, they're effective, and it'll be my pleasure and honour to support you. And yeah, that's all for now. If you want to get some more information, sign up to my sign up form on thebirthwhisperer.com, and I'll send you 7 secrets of a better next birth. And until next time, happy birth preparation.